Todd Bowles is officially back for the 2026 season, and that could be the biggest swing and miss for the Bucs in the last decade. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. I am your host, James Yarcho, writer over at Bucs Report, here with you every Monday through Friday, along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. If you want some playoff matchup breakdowns, crossover Thursdays are still happening thanks to Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. We are going to dive into what the domino effect will be moving forward for the Buccaneers coming up in a little bit, but it's been made official. Todd Bowles is back as the head coach of the Buccaneers for the 2026 season. The news broke Wednesday afternoon, courtesy of Rick Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times, who wrote the article. Stroud said, quote, Bowles confirmed Wednesday that he is returning as Bucs head coach for the 2026 season, his 5th at the helm in Tampa Bay. In a text message to the Tampa Bay Times, he also allowed that there could be some changes to his coaching staff. Bowles met with the Glazer family, which owns the team, Tuesday, and had interviews scheduled with members of his coaching staff Wednesday and Thursday, end quote. Jenna Lane took to Twitter right before we went live on YouTube and said that Bowles was informed that he was being retained as head coach by the Glazer family after the firing of John Harbaugh. Now, the Glazers have not made an official statement yet, but all the information that we have indicates that Todd Bowles is back. Even the firing of John Harbaugh is not going to change that. I did think that a coach of his caliber hitting the market might have shaken things up inside the building for the Buccaneers. I said as much when Jeremy Fowler dropped his report that all signs pointed to the Glazers retaining Bowles for another season, but apparently it was wishful thinking for the majority of the Buccaneers fan base. I just don't understand how you can do this if you were the Glazer family and taking an honest assessment of the season and how things went. You can point to injuries. Sure. You can point to an underachieving offensive coordinator that was probably in over his head and shouldn't have been promoted. Absolutely. But this was the guy in charge of the defense that performed at its worst level since Bowles arrived in 2019 and only suffered one true major injury. It was a unit that had pieces that he wanted to effectively run his system, and they didn't work out. The defense had the fewest sacks in a season under Bowles and was among the worst in the NFL in numerous categories, including red zone efficiency and goal-to-go efficiency. Flat out, they were bad, and they didn't have the same excuses that the offense did to hide behind. The decision by the Glazers might be the worst one since hiring Greg Schiano. Schiano was with the team for 2 seasons. He completely destroyed them inside and out, literally and figuratively. And you could argue that Lovie Smith was just as bad of a decision, but I can't think of too many reasons that you could say Lovie Smith was worse than Schiano. But this move is going to have major ramifications. You're essentially saying that 2026 is an all or nothing year. You cannot give him any more excuses. You cannot give him a longer leash. This is it. We don't know if there were conditions placed on his retention, but obviously there are going to be staff changes coming, and I'll get to more of those in a little bit. But this is a coach that is 35-33 in his 4 years as the head coach of the Bucs. He has 2 seasons under 500. Half of his seasons, he had a losing record. Yes, he's won the division 3 times, but in those 3 seasons, there's only been one team to also finish above 500, and it was the Saints in 2023 who were 9-8. That is not a coach that's dominating a bad division. That's a coach that's just doing barely enough to skate by before being ousted in the first round of the playoffs. You fired Tony Dungy for that. You fired one of the winningest coaches in franchise history for not going deep enough in the playoffs, and now You have a roster that can compete with the best the NFL has to offer, and you're settling for just scraping by. I don't care what anyone says. The Bucs are talented enough to compete with the best. We've already seen it. They were riddled with injuries, and they went out and beat the two teams that were battling for the number one seed in the conference. They have holes to fill, yes, but this is a talented group of players that can win and win now, and you're settling for mediocrity. I get that Bowles is a bright defensive mind, but he's also one that's been figured out. His scheme is not working the way it used to, and he was exposed in the second half of the season. The difference between this year and the last two is that the offense wasn't good enough to hide the flaws or overcome the mistakes. So why are you keeping him? Why is he getting the benefit of the doubt when, in my opinion, he hasn't earned that? He hasn't done enough to make anyone think, yeah, this season was bad, but he's the guy that's going to turn it around. His body of work is so good that you can't afford to let him go. No one is saying that. What makes you think that he's going to change anything? If he was going to change something, he would have done it this year when they were losing and losing and losing. And I don't think this has anything to do with the cost of the buyout. The Glazers have paid that before. It's not that big of a deal. In the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive. I think it has everything to do with the nostalgia and being loyal to a fault. Todd did some great things here. The Bucs do not win a Super Bowl without him. But as a head coach, he's not the guy. And I know Levante and Tristan and some of those guys were adamant about how much they love and respect Bowles and what a great coach he is. But that's not getting results. This is a results-driven business, and the Bucs are barely keeping their head above water. The goal, the reason that you're spending millions upon millions of dollars every year on players and on maintenance and on every member of the staff, from the cooks in the kitchen to Baker Mayfield, is to win a Super Bowl. The Bucs cannot do that with Todd Bowles running the show. If they could, they would have won more than one playoff game in the last 4 years. This is simply a coach that barely has a winning record, and it cannot maximize the potential and the talent of a team that should be winning double-digit games easily. In this division, in the NFC South, you should have been winning 12 to 13 games a year. You could get halfway there just against your division. Now the Panthers and Saints are catching up, and we're going to see where the Falcons are after they hire a new head coach once they pulled the rug out from under Raheem Morris after just 2 years. Mediocrity wasn't good enough for them for 2 years. Why should it be okay in Tampa when they have a more talented roster? This is not the news that a lot of Bucs fans were looking for. This is not the news that a lot of Bucs fans were hoping for. My personal view is not the one of a fan. It's one of somebody who knows and respects and likes a lot of the players in that building, a lot of the people in that building. And for the Glazer family to say, you know what? Barely over 500 in a playoff appearance, that's good enough for us. I've enjoyed covering this team. I've enjoyed covering a team that has been in contention for Super Bowls. I don't think they can be that team with Todd Bowles in charge. Going to jump into the chat really, really quick. We got my guy Nate. I've wondered out loud if the Bucs are thinking back to the tenuous status of Jason Licht before he brought in BA in 2019 and saw that the promised land was 2 years away after a little patience. You know, I am now wondering that if this doesn't work out, if 2026 doesn't work with Todd Bowles, is that now putting Jason Licht's job in jeopardy? Are the Glazers going to have to completely clean house? Because I don't think Jason Licht deserves to lose his job. I think when you take a look at his hits versus his misses compared to other GMs around the league, he's going to come out top 5. He built the roster that attracted Tom Brady. He knows what a championship roster needs to look like. But he's not the one making the decision solely by himself. The head coach does have input. Bruce Arians had input into what they were doing in 2019 and 2020. That's why you got rid of Gerald McCoy and you brought in Ndamukong Suh. That's how you were able to get Tom Brady. That's why Antonio Brown joined the team. Brady convinced BA convinced Jason Licht. That's how these things work. It is a dynamic. It is not a dictatorship. Jason Licht doesn't pick all the players on his own and say, all right, go win with these guys. There's some give and take there. Todd Bowles may be making changes to the coaching staff. We know that there are certain coaches that are on the chopping block, certain coordinators that are on the chopping block, but how much of a difference will those changes actually be considering the situation that the Bucs are now facing? That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming between subscriptions you forgot about, bills that keep going up, and trying to figure out where all your money actually goes each month. It's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction and hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. The automatic transaction categorization is a game changer. I can finally see exactly where my money is going each and every month. You can set budgets and goals. You can get personalized insights, receive real-time alerts for large transactions, upcoming bills, and low balances. It even consolidates your checking, savings, loans, and investments into a single dashboard so you get a clear view of your entire financial picture. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/locked on. That's rocketmoney.com/locked on. rocketmoney.com/locked on. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you're going to see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to the bets you like the most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on a game day and see what boosts you want to apply. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost and to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. The Seattle Seahawks are the favorites to win the Super Bowl at plus 390, followed by the Los Angeles Rams at plus 430, the Denver Broncos at plus 650, then the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles at plus 800. So visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you're a true diehard Buccaneers fan, which I know all of you are, the Everyday or All Access tier is built for you. You'll get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonbucks.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. Ironically enough, I sent out an all access episode to those members regarding the Jeremy Fowler report that Todd Bowles still appeared to be safe. Had some things I wanted to get off my chest, had some thoughts, and then boom, here we are shortly after that. Todd Bowles was confirmed to come back for 2026. And here's my other problem with all of this. And I said it on that all access members exclusive show. What kind of coaches do you think you're going to bring in? With Todd Bowles still in charge, what kind of coaches do you think are going to look at this situation in Tampa and think, yeah, I want to go there? It's not the best ones. I can promise you that. This isn't like the last 2 years where you're essentially going to be able to have your choice of candidates because the offense was so explosive and they were making the playoffs. You're talking about a coach that was now widely discussed as being on the chopping block, a quarterback that's in a contract year, and there's a high potential that the head coach that you're coming to work for is starting the year on the hot seat. That is not an attractive situation. That is a volatile environment where you may be one and done because the team goes 7-10 and the coach gets fired a year late. So now a new coach comes in, cleans house, and brings in his own staff. That's not what an offensive coordinator candidate is going to be looking for. That's not what a position coach is going to be looking for. They are looking for stability and job security while having a chance to coach an offense or a position group that could contend to win a championship. The Giants, the Falcons, the Ravens, shoot, maybe even the Raiders with the number one pick and young stars like Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers with a new head coach. Those are all going to be attractive situations with young talent. And then you're going to have a new head coach in those places, so you know you're going to have time. The only reason an offensive coordinator wants to be one and done with a team is basically because they took the same path that Dave Canales and Liam Cohen did. 1 year and then off to be a head coach somewhere else. Not because they're going to work for some lame duck head coach who runs a bad defense while your quarterback is potentially only going to be there for 1 more year and then you have to start over. Maybe they take the job hoping that it's kind of like 2024 was, where the offense is a top 5 unit in the league, and then they just stick around as the head coach once Bowles is fired. But that's a risky proposition because it could be the same script that it was for Cohen. You're our head coach of the future, but we're sticking with Bowles for right now. And you can't undermine Todd Bowles by telling this offensive coordinator, hey, if we hire you, you are going to be the next guy in the succession plan. You are going to be the next head coach. Now you've undermined your head coach and you've put it in the brain of your offensive coordinator that if the season doesn't go quite well enough, he's next in line. You're not going to be able to surround Bowles with the kinds of talent that he needs on this staff in order to be successful, which begs the other question, why did you keep him when you have to go out and try to find the best of the best in order to make him a viable head coach anyway? It sends a message to all the pending and potential free agents that you want to bring in or bring back. It's telling Mike Evans and Jamel Dean and Greg Gaines that what they went through last season will be more of the same next season. It's sending a message to Trey Hendrickson, Nakobe Dean, Matt Milano, Quincy Williams, that Tampa is the place to go if you're okay with being mediocre. This team is in a situation now where they have to go all in. They have to create more cap space. Then they have to turn around and max out that cap space that they created, and they have to make huge splashes, all on the defensive side of the ball, in order to make Bowles a viable coach. They have to surround him with the best of the best for his coaching staff. And as Jeremy Fowler pointed out, that may include a defensive coordinator. So again, I ask, if you are forcing Bowles, if that's part of the conditions to hire a dedicated defensive coordinator who would likely take on play calling, then why are you keeping Bowles? What purpose does he serve at that point? At that rate, he's just a guy that's pacing around the practice field, pacing the sideline on Sundays, and does a terrible job of clock management. I just do not think that there is a path for this team to have a season the way the Glazers expect them to have by retaining Todd Bowles. That's going to be a huge problem. That's going to be a huge problem. And I've said it over and over again. I like Todd. I don't want this to come across as me attacking the man as a person and a human being. What I'm saying is we see the window. We see the writing on the wall. And if you are going to maximize the talent that you have in this window that may only last another 2 years, then what possible justification do you have to see a head coach lose 7 out of 9 games after starting 6-2, make 0 changes, and believe that he is the guy that's going to make the changes necessary to make them competitive? That doesn't compute. That doesn't make any sense. How many times after a game did he say, I have to coach them better, they have to play better, we have to execute better? Then why weren't you? Why weren't you coaching them better? Why weren't they better prepared? 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 Why weren't they better pre That's the problem I have with all of this. That's the sticking point for me. I desperately want to hear what the true justification is to retaining Todd Bowles when he is in charge of the side of the ball that didn't have the excuses that Josh Grizzard did. Because it sounds to me like they're blaming the injuries and they're blaming Grizzard when Grizzard was the one that had to navigate those injuries. Todd Bowles lost Kalijah Cansey. End of discussion. You can point to a couple of other injuries where a guy missed 1 game or 2 games. But long-term, Bowles lost Cansey. Josh Grizzard lost his entire offensive line to start the season. He lost Jalen McMillan to start the season. He lost Mike Evans twice. He lost Chris Godwin twice. He lost Bucky Irving for 2 months. That's more of a reason to give Josh Grizzard a second shot than it is to give Todd Bowles one. And I swear on all things holy, I see one more person bring up John Gruden's freaking name, I'm gonna lose my cool. Stop it. He was a garbage head coach. He was worse than Todd Bowles is. Outside of Dungy's team, he was a sub-500 head coach for the Bucs. Didn't win another playoff game after the 2002 season, and his drafts were a thing of nightmares. You're having the same nostalgia problem that the Glazers are by retaining Todd Bowles. John Gruden is not the answer for any franchise, let alone this one. The only way you can sell this to the fan base is to go 100% all in on 2026. But what does that mean? I'm going to tell you next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. Hey guys, the draft picks positions are set and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. You ever wish to become a pro quarterback getting drafted first overall by, I don't know, say the Buccaneers? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB, Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number 1 draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness, to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. You'll deal with the ups and downs of a quarterback career, from rookie nerves to playoff drama, and every choice shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special just for you guys. Use the promo code Locked On, all one word, all caps, very important, all capitals, in the game store, and you're going to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB, Football Legend QB1, it's your legacy. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, and all in this situation means this: you have to sign or trade for the best players you possibly can. You have to find a way to make the financials work, and you have to load up this team like it's 2020 all over again. You have to find an actual brilliant offensive mind to take over as offensive coordinator. You guys know I loved Nate Scheelhaase as a candidate last year. That's a name that's going to get a lot of attention, but I don't know that you're going to be able to lure him to Tampa after you didn't give him the job the last time. All in could also mean not looking for an offensive coordinator that's going to be a first-time play caller, and could mean a retread that is a proven coordinator that maybe became a head coach, didn't work out so well, and now they're having to be relegated back to a coordinator position. If you're bringing in a dedicated defensive coordinator, it's going to have to be someone that's proven that they can do it. I know a lot of people are hoping for Raheem Morris, and while I would be totally fine with that, it's not likely to happen with the attention that he's getting for head coaching vacancies because a lot of people around the league don't believe that the Falcons should have fired him in the first place. You have to sell this fan base. This is a fan base that is revolting against the ownership right now because they are so angry and upset and discouraged, disillusioned, and frustrated that you have to do something to bring them back. You have to give them a reason to believe that retaining Todd Bowles was the right move. And it's going to take more than just one big name player. It's going to take multiple players that fans can get excited about. They need to see an elite edge rusher come into this building. No one that was elite and that you're hoping is going to bounce back. They have to currently be elite. That narrows the list down to all of about 2 players. This team needs to bring in a top-tier linebacker in free agency and then probably use their first-round pick, if they still have it, on another one to give fans hope that the middle of the field isn't going to be wide open again and the front 7 isn't going to give up multiple 50-yard run plays. If you do not do these things, if you do not mortgage the future in order to win in the present, you are going to see them blow the entire thing up and start over. New coach, new GM, rookie quarterback. You are going to see veteran talent and leaders walk out the door for better opportunities to win championships. You are going to see a return to the way things were in the 2010s, and nobody wants to do that. This, again, is an all or nothing decision by the Glazers. They have given the Bucs fan base a serious case of irritable Bowles syndrome. And the only way to treat it is by going harder in free agency than they have in years. You can't bargain shop anymore. You can't peruse the clearance rack or go to an outlet store. You have to spend top dollar on top talent or this isn't going to work. You have to have a 2020 level offseason. They brought in Brady. They traded for Gronk. They signed Leonard Fournette. They signed Antonio Brown. That's what you have to do on the defensive side. Otherwise, we are going to look back on this decision as the reason that the Buccaneers went from being Super Bowl caliber contenders all the way back to being bottom dwellers and missing the postseason year after year after year because they have to rebuild this entire thing from the ground up. Todd Bowles has not given the fan base a reason to believe that 2026 will be any different than it's been since 2022. And I'm sorry. I am. I'm sorry that that's the situation that they have now put this franchise in. I'm sorry that they feel like it's the right move to retain a coach where you're essentially rendering him useless by the kinds of jobs that you're trying to fill. And I'm sorry that the top tier free agent talent that they need in order to be successful is not going to be attracted to this franchise because of the head coach. And you can have as many players out there as you want vouching for him and talking to these free agents saying, no, this is a great place to play. You're going to love playing for Todd Bowles. They see the results. They see the results of Todd Bowles as a head coach. He's 61-73. He's 35-33 with the Bucs. 1 playoff win in 4 years. 1. And yeah, the 2010s, Bucs fans would have killed just to make it to the playoffs. Now is a different story. Now you have seen a team that has talent on top of talent on top of talent and lacks the leadership to do anything about it. And for that, I'm sorry for each and every one of you. And I pray to the football gods that Todd Bowles proves me wrong. You guys know when I'm critical of the team, when I'm critical of a player, when I'm critical of a coach, when I pick the Bucs to lose a game on my Friday live preview episodes, that I would love nothing more than to have to come back on this show and have every one of you in the comments rip into me for being wrong. I welcome it with open arms because I want to be wrong. In this situation, I want to be wrong. I don't want 2026 to be like 2025. I sold you all on a bill of goods about what this team was capable of and where they could go because of the moves that they made, the players they drafted, because I believed it. And we were all made to look like fools. It's not happening this time. You have to show me that this was the right decision because I'm not buying into it. We'll see how things look come March when they start in with free agency, when that legal negotiation window opens up. We'll see if there's some trade talks with the Raiders to land Max Crosby. We'll see if there's discussions with Trey Hendrickson to bring him in to be the alpha edge rusher. That carries some risk. You want to talk about injury prone? Take a look at Trey Hendrickson. Could be great for 10 games. But if they start bargain shopping and clearance bin diving again, I'm not picking this team to have a winning record. I'm not picking them to make the playoffs. You got to show me. Because the Glazers made their decision, and their decision was 2026 or bust. Because this team will be whipped into a rebuild faster than you can spell Ndamukong Suh. Baker will be gone. It will be a full rebuild, and you will have a new GM and a new head coach that want to bring in their franchise quarterback. That's where this team stands. So, if nothing else, 2026 is going to be real interesting, but I'm not real optimistic. That is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Bucs. Please check out everything going on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @Yarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those places. Make sure that you are subscribed on YouTube as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become an all-access member. Go to lockedonbucs.supercast.com or click the link in the show notes. You want to support the show, but you don't want to be an all-access member. It's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.